All right, so this first part, the OR probability, is essentially what we did yesterday. OR probability is just OR means add. That's what it means. So if you want the probability of rolling a 2 or probability of rolling a 3, it'd be probability of 2 plus probability of 3, which there's 1 2 on a 6-sided die, and there's 1 3 on a 6-sided die. And when you add fractions, you have to have a common denominator, and then you leave the denominator the same, and you add the numerators. It's been a little bit since we've done this. But 1/3 is your chance of, if you roll a die one time, what's your probability of getting either a 2 or a 3? You have a 1 out of 3 chance to get that. So yeah, 33.3%, which the decimal would be that, or 33.3%. So on the Canvas today, just pay attention to how it asks you to answer that, because that is important. You answered in the wrong form, you're going to get it wrong. For the spinner below, and below meaning like to the right, that's sort of below, you have 8 sides, and it wants a 2 or a 3 or a 7. So there's 1 2, there's 1 3, and there's 1 7. So 3 out of the 8. That's your probability of rolling a 2 or a 3 or a 7. You add those together, because OR means to add. So 3 divided by 8 is, yes, or 37.5%. Good. So we're going to use the spinner below again, which is not even below, but it is what it is. So the probability of 7. All right, quiet. So the probability of rolling a 7 or spinning a 7 would be 1 out of 8, but the even numbers, how many of these are even here? 4 of them. Yeah, so some of you may look at it and think, oh, I want to simplify that to 1/2, which is fine. But when you're adding fractions, it's easier to leave the denominator the same. So 5 out of 8 would be your answer, which is 62.5, or 0.625. All right, that's OR. And probability means to multiply. So the words and or then are the two words that you might see. And they mean to multiply. That's kind of a ugly looking U, but multiply. So what this means is that you have 2 separate events. You roll the die, and what's your probability? If you roll it twice, what's the probability to get a 2 and a 3? So you roll it, you get a 2. You pick it up again, you get a 3. So you're going to multiply the 2 fractions. 1 out of 6 times 1 out of 6. It's a 1 out of 36 chance. So typically for the AND probabilities, they are going to be a much smaller percentage. So it's going to be like 2.8% chance of that happening. Much smaller percentage than P2 or P3. Okay? Because it's like the AND signifies a separate event of you're rolling the die twice. All right, so we're going to use the spinner here. And we have a 1 out of 8 chance to get a 2, 1 out of 8 chance to get a 3, and 1 out of 8 chance to get a 7. So what would that probably, so you're spinning 3 times, and in those 3 times you want to get a 2, a 3, and a 7. So you're going to get like 1 over 512. And it's going to be less than 1% chance, so I'm just going to leave it in fraction form.
Yes, it does. No, you're going from one thing to another.
So it is kind of confusing because and in normal math means to add, but in probability it means to multiply. That's what, I mean, it is confusing. So for this one, you're doing 2 separate things. You're rolling a die, you're spinning a spinner. So for the die, the P3 would be 1 out of 6 because they have different denominators. There's only 6 sides on a die, 8 sides to the spinner. But for the even, for the spinner, 1/2. Notice on this one, I went ahead and simplified the 4 out of 8 because when multiplying, you do not have to have a common denominator. So you end up with 1 out of 12. If you don't simplify, that's fine. You would get 4 out of 48, which simplifies to 112 as well. So it's not like you get it wrong. So it's 8.3%. So here's what we're going to talk about. Replacement versus without replacement. So you have a bag of 30 M&Ms. If you pick one out and it's with replacement, you then put it back in and then pick out a different one. Okay? So, and remember means to multiply. So probability of red times probability of yellow. So the probability of red, there's 30 total M&Ms. You have a 4 out of 30 chance. Okay, but you're putting the, so we will get to that, but it says with replacement. Yeah, so you take the M&M out. 4 out of 30 of them are red. Let's say on the first try you get a red. You put the red one back in. The second one, you have a 6 out of 30 chance to get yellow. What's the probability of both of those things occurring? You'd have to multiply that to get that. So 4 over 30 times 6 over 30. What? 2 over 75 is what you should get. And then to turn that to a decimal, you click Math 2. And you get, it's like a 2.7% chance of that happening. So for here, you have a bag of 30 M&Ms. You reach in and you grab a red. So the probability of red would be 4 out of 30 still. But then you eat the red M&M. How many red, or not how many red, but there's only 29 M&Ms left in the bag. So the second time you reach into the bag, you grab a yellow. There's still 6 yellows in there, so that number doesn't change. But you then only have 29. So
I just feel like it helps me with probability. So why does it go up? What goes up? The denominator? No, I know that. Yeah. So why does the chance of it happening go up? Yeah.
Yep. Make sure you take good notes on this one because there's a very similar problem to this on the little M&M activity where it's got ors and ands. And it can get a little bit confusing. So remember, or means is add, and means multiply. So for blue and brown, you have, how many blue are there? 3 out of 30 are blue. 8 out of 30 are brown. Add those together, 11 out of 30.
So you do it left to right, right?
Yeah. And then, so that's like the first time you grab, and there is replacement on this one. It gets real tricky if there's no replacement. So, you grab this out, and then green or yellow, 2 out of 30, yellow 6 out of 30, and then that's 8 out of 30. But because there is with replacement, you are going to leave it at 30. So here's the deal. For this one, you're only having 2 events. The first event is, am I going to get a blue or a brown one out? And then the second one is, am I going to get a green or a yellow one out? So you're only digging into the bag twice.
Why does the chance go up so much when you're doing more events?
So, all right, figure out how many yellows there are. There's 6 yellows. So the first one, you reach into the bag, there's 6 yellows out of 30. You then eat a yellow. So there's only 29 left, but do not put 6. One of the yellows is gone. All right, so it's not in this problem, but hypothetically, what if it was yellow, yellow, and then yellow again? It'd be another one, and you'd have to subtract 1 from the top and bottom again, so it'd be 4 out of 28. 3 out of 20, then 3 out of 27 if it was 4 yellows. So I just need to do equal here and multiply them.
is this? Surface area probability